Hey guys, this is Ben McGee, just launching another episode of Cyber Protects and specifically talking today about security engineering and how important that is to everybody that's out there, especially if you're in the business of trying to protect other people's privacy, making sure that you can apply security controls and techniques like secure coding concepts, or how do you thwart things like cross-site scripting or SQL injection. Maybe another word that you may have heard of in the past is called fuzzing. Well, if you've not heard of any of these before, then definitely it's time for you to open up a YouTube channel or watch another one of our videos that talks about application security. It's super important to be able to protect any application that's out there, and you do that by immediately trying to go in and see what services are running for the application, and then after you do that, you can go in and select specific controls that can protect that application. Let me give you an example. We were doing an assessment recently on a web application that was running PHP, MySQL, and had a huge following. And this particular web application was getting a lot of latency and trouble with people logging into the system. So when we came in, it was how do you figure out how to try to make the latency problems go away. So what we did is we came in and started to investigate various techniques. We put a tap on the wire like Wireshark and started to look for timings on specific web pages or PHP pages and the calls from the code behind each button that would make database hits. And from that, bringing up the application logs on an Apache server, we were able to deduce that one particular page had a lot of redundant code, and by either commenting the code out or just straight up removing the code, we were able to decrease the amount of time that it takes to log in. But oftentimes you can use automation and automated tools to be able to check for fuzzing. A lot of times in class we talk about throwing the kitchen sink at people, and that's really what fuzzing is especially with a web application or a Windows Form application. You can throw the kitchen sink at that application, and what ends up happening is any possible entry point, whether it's a text box, a drop-down box, or if you can submit things from the command prompt, or maybe you're using PowerShell into that application, then a lot of times you can mimic types of attacks to an application prior to releasing it into the production mode, which is an important aspect of application security testing. So that would be fuzzing, you're throwing the kitchen sink. Another thing would be any secure coding concepts, and you can go out on MSDN to get a lot of the Microsoft best practices that we use whenever we're coding, even if it's not the .NET framework. Just Microsoft's been doing it for a long time. They got some great ideas in being able to utilize their techniques for secure coding is telling you what functions to use, which ones have been possibly deprecated, but being able to also run static and dynamic code source analyzers on your code base is super important. Two other things, and then we're going to shut her down for today. One is SQL injection. If you've not seen that, we got some great videos out on our YouTube channel about SQL injection, so check that out when you get a chance. But basically, you're able to do a fake SQL command, structured query language, and get the application to behave a little bit differently than it was intended to. And then lastly here, the cross-site scripting. Oftentimes we test sites that have a text box in it to see if it's vulnerable to a cross-site scripting attack. And if it is, then what we do is we just put some simple JavaScript in the text box and enable it to react in a way that was unintended. And from that, we can embed malware into the application and cause nefarious things to happen for those web apps. So this is going to be something that we're going to be publishing on our channel day in and day out in 2018 and beyond. So stay tuned for more on application security and controls, specifically getting into security engineering.